and start the webinar. So that's when people can come in. morning, good afternoon, and good evening, chefs from around the world. I'm Ling from World Chefs, and just like to give you a quick welcome to our session today. So to open the session, it's my pleasure to introduce Chef Alan Roril, the chairman of Young Chef Development Committee, to kick off the session.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We are so excited to have you all here. My understanding is that we have over 240 people registered for this webinar, so congratulations to all of you for embracing the power of knowledge through this webinar. Today's webinar is going to be a Mindset Moments webinar, channeling your inner CEO, and I'm sure it's going to be an amazing learning experience for all of us. I'm not going to introduce the adjudicator for this session because Dale Lyman's going to do that for me in just a moment. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to welcome you all, wish you all great health. I understand that we have people from Iran, the Philippines, Australia, Greece, the UAE, Egypt, and Bangladesh, and I'm sure many places. Egypt on the screen, and it's very exciting to have you all here. And now I'll hand it over to Dale to introduce the rest of our panelists and, of course, our host for this session.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. And yeah, good morning, good evening, and afternoon for wherever you are around the world. Look, thank you for joining this webinar, Mindset Moments, brought to you by Young Chefs Youth Development Team and Young Chefs. So we're sure you're going to get some great learning out of tonight, and you're going to be able to take some great things away from this webinar. My name's Dale Lyman. I'm coming to you from Melbourne, Australia. We've got obviously Alan on board. We've got some young chefs. We've got the ambassador, Jared, Zach, and we have Paul, and we also have an ambassador mentor, Billy Fox from Australia. So we've got two guys from Australia, we've got someone from Denmark, and we've got Zach from China, and we have Paul from Norway. So welcome to you guys as well. We're really privileged to have Martin Probst present to us today. I've attended some of Martin's webinars before and presentations and taken a lot away from it personally, which is why we thought this would be a great one to put up. You know, this week being Mental Health Week, you know, learning some ways to set your mind and really come up with great strategies to be the best you can. So Martin is a legend chef as well as being a legend presenter. He has worked with Paul Bocuse and Anton Mossman. So he's certainly a well-regarded and respected chef as well. He started his own business in 2012, and he's been presenting and talking on lots of great topics. He has, over the past 30 years, he's gathered a lot of experience, worked in 6 continents. He's a certified learning facilitator, business relationship and life coach. He's taught over 10 years in leadership, so he's very well versed and comes to us very well accredited to do what he's doing with us tonight and in the future. He's done lots of engagements nationally and internationally, and he's the author of 6 books, one of which was a bestseller for Amazon. So look, we're in really great hands with Martin. He's won lots and lots of awards for his training and speaking. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Martin to start the presentation for us tonight. And yeah, hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to everyone. Now, you probably wondered who this dude is with the floral shirt and the Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. So thank you very much, Dale, for that wonderful introduction and for putting a bit pressure on. I was actually wondering if you're actually talking about me here. Yes, welcome everyone for the Mindset Moments, today's topic, and to find out how we can connect with our CEO, and I will fill you in a bit more what that actually means. But before we get started, I'm really curious where you're from, where you signed in from, and I can see in the chat box that I highly encourage you to utilize. Please just type in your name if you haven't done it yet, and the land you're actually signing in from. And I'm just scrolling a bit up here and follow up from what Alan said before. I can see we have people from Azerbaijan, from Greece. There's a good day from Australia. That's probably Dale and myself, originally from Switzerland. We have some people from South Korea, Philippines. So please keep typing away. I'm really curious. Zimbabwe, Egypt. So a very international crowds. Bangladesh, Pakistan, Jamaica, Malaysia, another person from the Philippines, India. I think we're going really around the whole world, which is just fantastic. South Africa is coming through as well, and I can see the numbers are still going up, so there's still a few people joining us, which is absolutely wonderful. Awesome. So I'll see what's happening here, and you just keep typing away. That is fantastic. Maldives, some people from Norway, so Scandinavia is here as well, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, and the messages are just keep coming, which is fantastic. So please, let's make this session very interactive. I will have a few questions. You see, we have also a panel, but please utilize the chat box and later also the Q&A function if you have particular questions that you would like to have answered, probably a bit more towards the end of the session. So let me get started with a wonderful quote by Ziad Abdelnour, who rightfully said, "A negative mind will never give you a positive life." I completely agree with that quote. Yes, we need to understand that our mindset has an enormous effect on how resourceful we are in the kitchen and outside the kitchen as well, or not. So it has a lot to do with that resourcefulness. And that's why we have designed this webinar for you. So what's on the menu? I'm going to go quickly through the topics. We start off with how to master your mind. In this first topic, we will look at how we can make sense of the world around us and how we actually perceive situations in our minds. Then we're going into the second topic, the power of thoughts, where we look at the quality of our thoughts and how we chat and think or talk to ourselves. And also I will reveal in that second topic what it means to connect to our inner CEO, before we finish off tonight's webinar with our third topic on creating certainty in times of uncertainty. We'll bring everything together as a summary of the first two topics. So how does that sound? Maybe just use the chat box. Make sure we're on the right webinar here. Maybe just give me a quick yes or a yes, a tick, okay. Let's see if we're all on the same page here. Andrew says, great, thank you. Awesome, yes. So please typing away on that chat box. Having said that, I shouldn't ask those questions because I don't really have a backup plan, but thank you very much for agreeing. Sounds good. Looks delicious from Roberto. Yes, chef, oui, chef. Fantastic. We are in the right room and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun. Cool. Let me go straight into the first topic on how to master your minds. And I want to share with you a communication model which explains our communication flow with ourselves, so the self-talk, and of course also how we communicate with other people. And that will allow us to stay in control of our own thoughts, of our emotions and behaviors to achieve ultimately a better outcome with more ease. And that's how it works. The whole process actually starts with an external event. So I'm talking about the environment here, the kitchen environment, the hospitality business, our clients, everything that is actually happening around us. And we try to make sense of that experience around us with our five senses. And I'm sure you can help me out here. The five senses is our visuals, our eyes, what we see, what we hear. kinesthetic, meaning what we feel, the tactile, the touch, the feelings and the emotions, and very important in the kitchen as well. Of course, we have the taste and the smell as well. Now, interesting enough, our sensory input channels, so the 5 senses, they are exposed to 2 million bits of information every single second. That's a lot of information that is coming straight at us every time we open our eyes or open our ears, so that information flow comes straight through. And to make sense of the world and to make sure we're not getting overwhelmed, we actually delete, we distort, and we generalize information from about, and this is where it gets actually quite interesting, from about 2 million bits of information every single second, we chunk them down to about only 7 plus minus 2 chunks of information per second. And let me ask you, what do you think we call those 7 chunks that are left out of 2 million bits of information? Just use your chat box again and have a guess. What are we calling all the information that is left after really deleting, distorting, and generalizing information? I'll just give you a few seconds to respond. So somebody from the panel, please feel free just to take yourself off mute and have a crack at that question. Alan, you're off mute. You want to have a guess?
I'm sitting here thinking about it.
I can see action impulse comes through the chat box. We actually call that our reality. Our reality, only about 7 chunks out of 2 million bits of information. And I really want to bring this home because this is already a bit of a game changer here. I want to do a small activity with you. In a second, I will show you a bit of a photo collage, so a big picture with small pictures in it. And I want to see how many pictures with a particular color you can remember within 10 seconds. I hope everybody's clear on that task. Just give me a thumbs up quickly. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. So the picture that I want you to remember are the ones that are yellow. And here comes the collage. So please try to remember as many pictures as you can if yellow. And it's about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there it goes. That was a very quick 10 seconds, but it's gone. So please just close your eyes for a second, clear your head, and now answer my question. How many of the images can you remember that are blue? Zach has a bit of a giggle there. I know I'm a bit cheeky. I usually challenge the status quo. Yes.
Yeah,
how many?
Got me that way.
Yeah, I got a few people there. Yes. What do we learn from this very short 10 seconds activity?
Suggestion is powerful.
Suggestions are very powerful, and the people who were looking for the yellow pictures probably are very good in listening to orders and following instructions, isn't it? What else? So Zach, how many pictures can you remember that are blue? Not yellow, blue.
Not a lot.
None.
Only need
Not
some
a lot.
yellow picture, flower
Not a lot.
or light, something.
Yeah. Yeah. So can it be fair enough to say, and there's quite a few different numbers coming through, can it be that what we focus on is what we get to the exclusion of everything else? So this is really explaining that deletion, distortion, and generalization parts. So the reality, or what we presume as our reality, is a very tiny percent of what's really going on around us. Now that's an interesting one, because what if the yellow symbolizes all the problems that we face in our life, and the blue ones maybe symbolize all the solutions that are actually around us? But because we're focusing so much on our problems or our limitations, everything else starts to fade away. And I think it was Dr. Milton Erickson who said beautifully in one of his quotes, he said, everyone's model of the world, so the reality, is as unique as our thumbprint. So we're all experiencing the same thing in different ways, let me call it that way. And I think that is quite intriguing. So we need to be very careful what we choose to focus on. And I deliberately say that, choose to focus on, it is a choice. What if we sometimes in meetings even, how often are we focusing on the problem where we walk out of a meeting an hour later and we feel really good because we could, you know, express all the challenges that we face, but then we go back to the kitchen, to the section of the kitchen, and then suddenly it hits us and we realize, nothing actually going to change. Why not? Because we spend all the time and energy on the problem that we didn't have time for solutions. And I think it has a lot to do with mastering our mind. So really important, we need to shift that, because at the moment, yellow is our reality, but we need to understand that there are also different potential realities out there by shifting our focus and what we actually focus on. And you may want to write this down because this is really important. Success to me, sometimes people ask me, how do you get success? I think there's only three things that we really need to do. To me, success comes down to what we focus on, what we decide to do, and what we do consistently. How do you like that? Maybe just go to the chat box and give me some feedback how we're going here. So I say that again, success comes down to what we focus on, what we decide to do, and what we do consistently. And that shift, Caroline says, correct, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Absolutely. So give me some feedback. Beautiful. Yeah. So our mindset here needs to shift from excuses to results, from judgment to more acceptance, from blame to maybe taking a bit more responsibility, from buying into fear and doubts to create a bit more courage and trust, from procrastination to a bit more action. So there is a choice, and I'm talking about here moving from a dependent mindset, let's see in white what's happened to, now let's have a crack at things, let's try things out and see how we go and learn from our mistake. Consistency, yes, Sherry, consistent, very important part. Heinz Pfister, yes, were you tuning in? That name sounds very familiar. Yeah, absolutely. Marilyn, thank you. Consistently, I think that resonated with a lot of people. Beautiful. And we can actually do this by really truly understanding and acknowledging that we do delete all the time what we unconsciously think is not relevant. We distort what we experience so it fits into what is actually familiar to us. So the brain makes a lot of comparison. Have I seen something similar before? Yes, filtering it in. If not, leave it out there. And we actually do generalize and draw conclusion based on a few experiences. Therefore, can we agree that perception equals reality? It's the same thing, isn't it? Zach, you're shaking your head. You're not on board with that statement? Give me some feedback there. Please feel free to challenge me. Can we agree that perception equals reality? Awesome, fantastic. Yeah, Dale says yes, awesome, fantastic. So we need to really truly understand that our perceptions create different realities, and hopefully that already helps The next time, if you think you're right and therefore the other person is wrong, please remember my words. I believe we are all right in our own world and how we interpret things. The challenge, of course, sometimes is how do we find win-win situations that are working out for both parties? Because how we delete, distort, and generalize is determined by our thinking, which leads almost into the second part of the presentation here. Now it's going the process of thinking. And the way we think with the continuous deletion, distortion, and generalization creates an internal representation of what we externally experience now inside of our heads. So please listen very carefully what I'm going to say next. I believe the reality that we experience is largely determined by what we do inside of our heads, how we think and how we communicate with ourselves. And therefore, it is not necessarily the realities or the external events that shapes us, but the lens through which our brain views the world that actually shapes the reality. I hope that makes sense. Give me some feedback here. Am I just mumbling on? Alan, I can see you making quite a lot of notes.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I'm always telling my team about their perception and the way they think about challenges, to take a step back and view it from someone else's perspective in order to reach an understanding amongst one another before you can find a solution to work together.
Absolutely. And having conversations like today, and I don't even need to agree with everyone here, having a conversation where we're pushing the boundaries, where we're creating different perception and paradigms, where we can say, I don't really understand what he's talking about, but it makes me think and see things from a different perspective. It creates opportunities to deal with challenges in a different way. To me, that is what leadership is all about. It's not always about who is right and who is wrong. What can I learn from different viewpoints? So Alan, thank you very much for sharing with us your insights as well. So this leads us into our thinking process. And I want to bring up a quote, the quote and Paul here. Let me see if I can bring that up, about thoughts. How many thoughts do we have per day? And I'm going to launch that and you should be able to see a poll. How many thoughts do you think we have every single day? Do you think we have not enough? 600 thoughts per day, 6,000? Do you think we even have 60,000 thoughts per day? Or do you think we have way too much? They actually never stop. So I can see people voting, which is great. So you know what to do. I'll just give you a few seconds there to complete. We're about halfway through all the participants. One is very clearly taking the lead without giving away too much. Let's wait for the people who need a bit more time to make decisions. Roberto says too many, so maybe on a bit of a mobile device and can't access the poll. Thank you for sending through that as well. Amrit saying good morning. The numbers are still going up. We are about 65% at the moment. Do we have not enough thoughts, 600 thoughts, 6,000, 60,000, or way too many? They never stop. And I think we had enough time. I'm going to end the poll here and I'm going to share the result. And interesting enough, 62% said way too many, they never stop, followed by 600 thoughts by 13%. We have 60,000 thoughts for 10%, and then a minority has indicated not enough. So probably these are the thinkers on this call. So I stop sharing this and I'm going to reveal the answer. The answer actually is we have 60,000 thoughts roughly every single day. That's a lot of conversations we have up here. I would say this is more conversation than we have with our executive chef, with our loved ones, with our life partner. So we better make sure we have a very positive, nurturing and supportive thoughts with ourselves. And I think that is a big learning from today's webinar. And I quite often say, people who are stressed, what types of thoughts do they need to have? Probably stressful thoughts. Otherwise, how can you be stressed? And quite often people who are really stressed, what are they focusing on? The things they can't control. They're focusing on the future. They're asking a lot of, oh, but what if something goes wrong? So these what we call very limiting questions or thoughts create stress. Which brings us to the next question. What are thoughts? If I would be an alien, I have no concept of thoughts, how would you explain that to me? And again, maybe just use your chat box or the people on the panel. Please take yourself off mute. How would you describe to me the process of thoughts? What is it? Any ideas? That should be actually quite an easy question because we're doing it 60,000 times every single day. So what are thoughts? Billy, any idea? I'll put you on the spot here.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm struggling to put into words like in the right way. You know what I mean? Like, as you say, you think about it each and every day, but you don't, I don't know. I've never really tried to define it. So I'm struggling a little bit here.
And a lot of people, thanks for your honesty, a lot of people struggle to actually create that concept of thoughts. And it's quite amazing how little attention we pay to something we're doing 60,000 times a day. Looking at the chat box comes from the mind, flash memories of information, who, what, where, when, how, and why. Thanks, Jasper. Paul says internal dialogue. Caroline says, I think it's the thing that we imagine. You're all spot on. And I actually spend a lot of thoughts on the thought process. And I came up with my solution, and there's probably no right and wrong, but I came up with a simple explanation that thoughts are simply questions and statements that are often expressed through beliefs in our heads. And you're probably doing it right now. You either ask yourself, is that true? So what does that mean? Or, which are the question, or you're making statement and say, Martin, you're spot on, or, that's rubbish. Either way, in that case, it would be a statement, interpret as beliefs. Beliefs, the things that we tell ourselves to be true or false. Now, important really is that questions or thoughts or statements, in other words, they can be either limiting or they can be very empowering. Needless to say, if we want to master our mind and create a mindset of excellence, we need to strive for very empowering thoughts. What do I mean by that? Well, empowering thoughts means our brain works like a Google search engine. Whatever you ask yourself, you need to answer those questions. That's a really important part. So I created a human Google machine here, and I want to see what the Google human machine brings up. And please, with the chat box again, please help me to identify if the questions that pop up are limiting or they are empowering. So chat box, just put an L or an E for empowering. Let's see how we go. If you ask yourself in your head, why am I always missing out? Is that a limiting belief or is that an empowering? Oh, the L's are coming through right there. Yes, they are so limiting. How about this one? Why am I submitting my assessments late? Limiting or empowering?
Empowering. Empowering.
Wait, who said empowering?
That's me.
Alan, thank you very much. interesting enough, I thought that as well. And I was a teacher quite a while in formal education. And how many times did I ask my students, why did you submit your assessments late again? I wish I would have known what I know today. Please stop asking that question because they are very limiting. What would be an answer? An answer could be, I worked double shift last night. I was too tired to complete the work. I didn't have enough time. I forgot. I didn't know that it was due today. What else could it be? The problem is with those questions, what are we focusing on? Are we not focusing on our limitation and excuses, Billy? Absolutely. And the brain says, dude, are you stupid? I already gave you 5 reasons why I didn't submit my assessment. You better get used to it. No, I don't want to get used to it as a teacher because I care way too much about my students. So we need to shift the focus from the problem and the excuses to empowering question. I'm going to show you in a second how we can do that. One more question here, which becomes quite obvious. Why can I never get anything right? Who can relate to that question? Yes, that's where the fear kicks in, where we're judging ourselves really badly. Again, they are very limiting. Guys, you're awesome. There's so much feedback and chat stuff coming through. It's beautiful. You're really engaging. Awesome. Fantastic. They're limiting as well. Why are they limiting? Because we're focusing on the problem and we actually victimize ourselves. Look at me, poor me. Because I'm too stupid, because I don't deserve better, because you feel whatever you're going to tell yourself, stop doing it. I'm going to interrupt you right there because it is limiting. The next question, what do I need to learn about myself in this situation? Is that limiting or empowering?
I think that's empowering.
That's an empowering one. Absolutely. This is a question I'm asking myself every single day. What do I need to learn about myself in this particular situation? What will I do about this situation if I don't like it, if it doesn't suit me, if it doesn't support or nurture me? Yes, guys, absolutely. Now the whole conversation shifted in the chat box as well. Empowering, empowering, empowering. There's another one. How can I change this situation? So quite often the why question, the why me, poor me, victimizing questions, limiting. The how and the what question, they're identifying opportunities and possibilities and focusing on solutions. So therefore they are very empowering because they're focusing not only on solutions, but they are also focusing on what is in your control. Let me ask you that question. Can you change other people?
No.
No, you can't. And that's a good thing because that is what we call the freedom of will. It's up to us what we're going to do. Yes, we can influence, and that's a very important part. I'm going to talk about that a bit more, but that's where our influence stops. So an independent mindset, a healthy mental mindset focuses on empowering and what is in our control. Who was it? Nelson Mandela, who beautifully said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Start with yourself. And that sounds a bit harsh, but to me, that is really empowering. Cool. Another thing you can do and implement right away, very simple, but also powerful and profound. State it as you want it, not as you don't want it. I'm actually really amazed how many people know exactly what they don't want in their career or life. For example, oh my God, I don't want to be angry anymore or frustrated, and I really don't want to deal with the same thing every day again and again. Sounds familiar? So we know exactly what we don't want anymore. Even in Australia, and I put Dale here on the spot. Dale is a good day, mate. He's an Aussie. Who else do we have there? Jared, I think. You're from Darwin. And I'm not too sure how that resonates with other people around the continent, but I've traveled a lot, as Dale said. I think it is really much in Australia, but a global problem that people or human beings know what they don't want. And what I'm talking about here is even the good old Aussie small talk. We quite often talk about the things that we don't want. And conversation in here in Down Under, they sound like this. How's it going, mate? Not bad. What are you up to? Not much. Where is this place? It's not far. When are we going there? Not long now. How much was that? It wasn't cheap. So we quite often, and please forgive me if I'm making a bit fun when I'm having the Australian passport as well these days, so I'm allowed. But is it not interesting how we quite often outline exactly the things that we don't do or want? And we expect the kitchen brigade, our team, to understand what we actually mean. So how about we start to state things the way we want it, so that we give very clear, precise, and detailed directions. Because I'm going to fill you in on one thing that is important. The unconscious does not understand negatives. It takes all the words as flat value. So if you say spill the milk or don't spill the milk, for the unconscious mind, it's exactly the same thing. Now you probably think this dude with the floral shirt here is going coco-loco halfway through the program. Let me bring that home to you. And I really hope you understand my accent here. And by the way, Jared, here he comes. I'll be back. He asked me to actually put that quote up there, and we need to have a bit of fun too. So good on you. Tick. Awesome. Now, please, under no circumstances, and you do understand that whatever you do, do not, do you hear me? Do not think of a clear blue sky, palm trees, and a pink elephant enjoying itself on the beach. What just happened? You probably saw something like this. Hang on, where's the elephant? There it is. So quite interesting, and we really need to get this. And remember, we get what we focus on to the exclusion of everything else. Why? Because words are a very self-fulfilling prophecy, and where your words lead, your mind and your body will follow. Give me some feedback. How are we going? What are you taking away so far?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That simple but powerful, and I'm sure if you implement that right away, you will have different outcomes. Farber agree, yeah. Jasper agrees. Cool. Majed says no, not sure what you're saying no to. Please maybe give me a bit more information on that one so we can get back to you. And then there's a lot of agree coming through. So instead of saying don't spill the milk, we can say please hold the glass straight. Now I give clear instruction and I tell the brain what I'm expecting, and that makes a huge difference. Try it out. Because the thoughts creates then our emotional state. And they are very much connected. This is the mind and the body connection here, because our physiology creates our psychology, and our psychology creates our physiology. They are really going hand in hand. Now, I want to share a bit of an insight or a part of my life when I worked on cruise ships. How many of you guys worked on cruise ships? I've done it for quite a few years. So maybe just say I, if you worked on cruise ships as well. Very exciting. And I started my first contract in Monaco in the early 90s. Yes, it shows my age. I actually have proof. Should I show you a picture? Looks a bit scary though. Should I show you a picture? Me on the cruise ship? For sure. For sure. Okay. Here he comes. This is me looking very serious on the Silver Wind from Silver Cruise Lines, Silver Sea Cruise Lines in 1994. And interesting enough, as you know, I'm actually living in Australia in December this year, 20 years. I show you this picture as well because at that time I fell in love with Australia, and I promised myself up here in my thoughts, I promised myself that one day I will work in Australia. Just one more time to showcase how powerful your brain really is. Now, coming back to the cruise ship time, when I started in Monaco, I was really amazed. The 5-star, I would even say 6-star service people received on a cruise ship. The experience they got was absolutely phenomenal. And I was asking myself, who is in charge of that cruise liner? And help me out here. Please use the chat box again. Panel, just take yourself off mute. Who do you think is in charge of the cruise ship?
Staff.
Staff. Somebody else? Andrew says guest. No, it wasn't me. Let's get rid of this picture there. Who else? Staff. Mengli says the captain. Fatima says the captain. Absolutely. The captain or the staff. Yes, interesting. Which one is it? I actually started to realize very quickly as more the captain communicated clearly with the staff and vice versa, as better the experience was. I also unfortunately had the opposite experience when the connection and communication completely went down, and so did the creation. The staff experience, the passenger experience really wasn't good. And we were very close in one of my contracts where we really hit hard against each other. We were very close to what's happened if the captain and the staff don't communicate and work well together. We almost had a mutiny. Now, this is really important. And what makes me say that, and you might think, well, how does that actually relate to mindset moments? Well, let me explain a bit further. I think the captain symbolizes our brain. The captain is the brain of the ship. It's our mental health, our conscious mind, our IQ, the cognitive aspect of our being or our brain functions and our mental health. It is the flexibility to solve problems, use critical, independent, and positive thinking. In other words, how we articulate things to ourselves, so the self-talk and the thoughts again, and how we communicate with others. On the other hand, yes, we have the crew as well. The crew to me is the heart of the ship. Our emotional fitness and well-being, our unconscious mind, our emotional intelligence, the things that are all happening without the captain even thinking about it. Laundry, cooking, maintenance, engine room, painting, cleaning, you name it, it's a lot. That provides a wonderful experience to the passenger. It's our ability to recognize, express, and control moods. And I worked with a lot of heated chefs, and they really didn't have a lot of emotional intelligence very early days. I'm very pleased to see that we have executive chefs, great executive chefs today, which really utilize emotional intelligence and know how important that is. And it is. I often say a business does not only need a brain, it also needs a heart of the ship. Were there any questions? I just could hear somebody coming off mute. So my question here is, if you don't have one, my question is, which one is more important? Is it the captain or the crew? The brain or the heart? Or is it the conscious or the unconscious mind? Which one do you think is more important? Roberto says both. Alfred says the heart. Selamat says both. So we have a bit of a different mind here. Heart and brain, both. Absolutely. I actually agree. Both are mutually important because the best possible experience for our passengers and the best performance we get when we maintain great mental and emotional well-being, where the heart and the brain connects well, where we're working together and we have great conversations, where we actually tap in to our thoughts and emotions and bring them in harmony, which is quite often what we refer to authentic leadership. Because if the optimism of my heart says yes, but the pessimism of my brain says no, what outcome do you get? You get mixed messages. Why? Because you give yourself mixed signals. Mixed messages creates mixed results. Only when we align our emotional intelligence with our intelligence quotation, then we get high performance in our team. So what I'm saying here is congruence and balance is key. And here it comes. Connecting with your inner CEO means that you have to create conscious awareness around your unconscious by tapping into your emotions and recognize why they are there, to ensure they both work hand in hand and in a positive and resourceful way. So for example, next time when you feel frustrated, ask yourself, use your brain and tap into the emotional intelligence and say, why am I feeling frustrated? Because if you ignore the emotion of frustration, do you think the emotion is going up, down, or does it stay the same? What's happened to the emotion? It increases. Why? Because the brain tries to ignore parts of who you are. The second you stop and you tap into your emotional intelligence and you ask yourself, why am I feeling frustrated here? What is the sign of frustration? We will probably realize that the unconscious says, hey, dude, you know better. So stop doing what you're doing because it's not working out and try something different. And if you do that, what's happened to your frustration? It disappears because it's no longer needed. It served his job. It's done his job. Now you can go back into positive emotions. Excellent, Chef Shaman from Turkey. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that. And this balance will create our most congruent and authentic self that allows us to live in harmony with great mental and emotional well-being to create sustainable success. I think it was Carl Jung who said, until you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it faith. And that's a very dependent mindset, because how we feel and how we think creates the decision making. So it's a simple roll-on effect from there. So how we feel, how we think regulates the decision and ultimately determines how we respond back to our external environment with our actions and behaviors. And ultimately, last but not least, what we put energy into it, what we do and say, our actions and behaviors creates our results. So please, from today's session, a summary here is we are not a product of our circumstances and what's happening around us. We are clearly a product of how we interpret things with our minds and emotional intelligence and how we choose to respond with our actions and behaviors. And that brings us already to the last part. Was I a bit too fast? Please feel free to take a picture of the screen as well with your camera. Please share, please do whatever with it, what you want. Most importantly, implement those strategies. And to finish off today, it raises the question, how can we create more certainty in times of uncertainty? I believe we are living in a world of chaos, especially for the last 18 months or so since COVID hit. We have a global pandemic. Everybody's screaming for certainty, stability, and some sort of control. Am I right or am I right? Maybe just show some hands.
So correct.
Yes. We're all craving that certainty and stability. That raises the question, what is in our control and what's not? Well, it's actually quite simple, and it's just a bit of a hover of the previous model. I think there's only one thing we have 100% control over, which is the certainty within. That's it, simple as that. And the certainty within, broken down into two parts, is simple. The way we interpret things in life. So how we filter in information. Remember the deletion, distortion, and generalization. That creates our emotions and mental state. So the way we interpret things. And the second one is, therefore, how we respond back with our behaviors and actions. That's what we really have control over. Now, of course, how we behave, how we act, do you think we have some sort of influence on the people around us? Especially for the young chefs here who want to step up into department, chef de parties, sous chefs, head chefs. It's all about influence, and that is quite often underrated. But yes, we call this the circle of influence, where we have some control. Really important. So the way we behave, what we do, what we say or don't do or say, has an impact on our culture, in our environment, on our establishment, on our kitchen brigade, in our galley, in our kitchen, you name it. And that's where our responsibility and control stops. Who can help me out here? What's happened if we step outside the blue circle of influence? What's happened out there? Any ideas?
You don't have any control?
No control at all, Billy. This is what I call the ego land. This is the ultimate illusion of control. And you need to be really listening carefully here, because there's a correlation between control inside of us and externally. And I say that with all respect, but for me, that was a complete game changer. As more control, certainty, and confidence you have within yourself, as less control you need outside of us or yourself. As less confidence and control you have within yourself, as more you try to control the environment and the people around you. And if that's the case, good luck to you, but you're heading towards stress, anxiety, probably long-term, even burnout. So what I'm saying here very clearly is, and that can be a struggle, Robert, yes, as much as we need to learn to take responsibility for our actions and inactions, as more we need to take control or responsibility of how we interpret things in our life, and therefore how we respond, as much, at least as much, we have to learn to let go of the things that are not in our control. Who struggles with that from time to time? Please tell me I'm not the only weirdo. You know what I mean. Sometimes we have to let go, because how often are we getting so worked up what's happened on the other side of the planet, and so on and so on. And while it is important, we need to be very careful where we put the energy. And are we not better off to put the energy where it actually makes a difference, where we can positively influence our life and the lives of the people around us, rather than wasting the energy that we don't have in the first place? I think the answer is very clear. So we also need to understand that when connection and communication go up, so does creation. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we understand who we are, the more our mind and heart connects and communicates together. And this is where we become the master of our own faith and the captain of our soul. I'll leave you with that idea. The time has flown away from us. I hope I served you well, and I hope I earned the privilege of your time. Thank you very much. That is me. And please remember, empowerment, the greatest strength, comes from within. And I just want to hand over to Lynn or Dale. We have probably a bit of question time. and we still have quite a few more minutes. And I can see in the chat box, thank you very much from all of you as well. Amazing, thank you, thanks, Chef. Yeah, absolutely, thank you. And there's a recording, and I think Lynn will put the recording up. Thank you as well. I articulate it because quite often, and I'm sure when Dale put my CV through or introduce me, especially the kinesthetic people on the call who throwing hearts out there, which I really appreciate, they probably thought, so what? And good on you, because somebody wiser than me once said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So please learn to articulate things, but also to articulate with your team and your kitchen brigade. It's amazing what you're going to get out of them. I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, so we've got a question here, Martin, which is a really curly one, I think. So the question is, being professional should ignore emotions. So it's a question, should we ignore emotions? Does that make you professional?
Can we? I'll hand that question back to Roberto. I think it comes. Thank you very much for that question. I hear that often. I think we can. Quite often I get even asked, are you doing personal or professional development? And I quite often say, what's the difference? Can you really leave part of you outside the kitchen and pretend, that's probably the right word, pretend to be somebody that you're not, pretend to be somebody else? I don't think you can. Emotion, as more we suppress emotion, as more health problem we will occur, because it becomes a steamer. I'm going to use some kitchen metaphors to bring this home here. As more we create pressure, a pressure steamer, and that lid will come off once the pressure is big enough. Good luck with that. It will be an emotional throw up. And that's not a good thing to deal with, because that's quite often where we lose control. So I think to be professional, we have to use emotional intelligence. And I'll give you the shortest HR checklist. If a chef wants to leave your establishment or kitchen, they will probably answer one of the 3 questions with a simple no. And you want to write them down. That is the shortest cultural checklist you probably find around the whole world. I came up with that a couple of years ago, which I used. I was a head chef at Crown Casino here in Melbourne, quite a big complex, and I used it around the world. I was also in charge of Southampton Princess on Bermuda, close to Bahamas, at least in the right direction, quite big companies. The 3 questions are simple. Do I matter? Do I belong? And can I contribute? And all of those 3 have to do with emotional intelligence. And if the answer is yes, you have an absolutely great team, people that want to work for you, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that's a big difference. And if you have people that want to leave your kitchen or want to move on, they will probably answer one of those 3 questions, if not more than one, with a simple no. I hope that answers the question.
I think that's brilliant. I really like that.
So there's a few questions there, Martin. Do you want me to read them out to you, or you got?
That would be great, yes.
So from RM, Riyad Mazara, I'm sure that I pronounced that very badly, but the question is, so it's all about mindset and how we view things. That's the first part of his question. And the next part of his question is, how do we change our mindset and thoughts?
Awesome. It really starts, everything starts with a humble thought. Let's call it that way. Because if you think, and this is going back to this model here, and I'm going to quickly go back. I'm going to share it with you, this one here. You see, if you think well, or let me start the other way around. If you don't think well, you don't feel well. And if you don't feel well, you don't make really good decisions, and therefore you will have very dysfunctional behaviors, and therefore you create stress, anxiety, depression, burnout. If you do think well, you feel well. And if you feel well, you will do well, and therefore you will get great achievements. You will get a sense of pride, determination, achievements, you name it. We're talking about values here. Please remember, and you want to write this down as well. I haven't planned that, but there's so great question. I really want to give you value. Please remember, we are all value fulfilling machines. The only reasons why we get out of bed in the morning is to fulfill our desires, values, and needs. Nobody wants to have the action. But what we want is the values, the feeling that we get from action. Am I making sense, or am I just mumbling on here? A runner, for example, some people say, I'm going for a fun run. And I say, how can you put those two words together? Either you're going to go for a run or you have fun. You can't have both. They're completely the opposite in my world. And I actually spoke to a very high athletic guy and I said, are you really love running? And he said, I love running. I said, seriously? You love to run to the point where you have blisters on your feet? And he said, well, actually, if you're putting it that way, no, I don't really like running. I said, so why are you doing it? And here comes the kick. He said, you know what? When I go through that finish line, it's worth all the pain. That sense of determination and fulfillment and achievements, it's worth the pain. This is what I mean. If you're doing overtime, you're not doing overtime because you love doing overtime. You're doing overtime because you want to have a sense of belonging. You want to have a sense of accomplishment. You want to have a sense of external approval by your clients. Am I making sense? So yes, everything starts with a thought. How do we change it? How do we change the thought process? Let me ask you that question, Red. Who is in control of your thoughts? You are. Nobody else than you. As more conscious awareness as you create, as more you become aware of your limiting questions, as more you can interrupt them. The second you consciously create awareness like, oh, here comes my pity question again. Why do I always have to stand back and complete everybody else's work? Whatever it is that you're telling yourself, stop and reframe that question. Change it to an empowering question. What do I do with this situation? How do I deal with that situation to make it or being different in the future? And as more you can do this, conscious awareness of your unconscious, as more you start to achieve better outcomes. I hope that answers the question.
Fantastic. There's just two more questions, Martin, but they both relate to how people could actually learn more from you. So are you happy to share? Can they contact you on your website, or how would people get in contact with you?
Absolutely, that would be absolutely great. Profound leadership. And what I do, if that's okay, in the chat box, I actually put my LinkedIn. If you have LinkedIn, that's usually for professionals. If you don't, I encourage you to start to connect with people. Please feel free. There's a lot of great resources. I think, Lynn, if you can include a bit of a link to maybe my resources on my webpage, that would be absolutely great. They are free webinars, they are free resources, downloads, blogs, articles. I just had an interview with a lady from South Africa, which went on, I think, today or yesterday. So I do quite a lot of things around the world. Please do feel free to connect. Absolutely. And thank you for your wonderful feedback.
And there's two more questions we might try and answer quickly, and I think we'll make these the last ones. So Levi Carter, who I believe is in Tasmania, by using emotional intelligence, could you say that falls under manipulation? Good question.
Oh, Thank you very much for that question. I love it. I'm really glad you bring this up, because there is a bit of a stigma around emotional intelligence as well as mental health. We need to be very clear, and thank you, as I said, for bringing this up to me to elaborate and clarify. These strategies that I share with you, they are very powerful, and I know that you're going to use this for good. And if I say for good, I mean to achieve a win-win outcome. I need to be very clear. Those leadership skills, I think you can, as more you have those leadership skills, you can easily achieve a win-lose outcome. But that's not why we're here. If you try to do this, I actually encourage you to get off this call, because that's not what I believe in. That is manipulation. This is a mindset of, I need somebody else to see them lose so I can get a sense of winning. That's a win-lose mindset. And if you believe to do that, you need to go to the tattoo parlor and write something on your forehead so everybody knows who they're dealing with. That sounds a bit harsh, but you can also feel I'm quite emotionally around this. Influence is win-win. And I used this with a student recently who said, all right, I guess you win. And I said, that's okay. Now we really need to make sure it also works for you. She looked at me like, who is this guy? And I said, we haven't finished the conversation yet. When we started this conversation, we agreed we will find a win-win outcome. And for the first win, to achieve a win for yourself, you need to have courage to stand up for what you believe in. But you need to have equal amounts of compassion that has a lot to do with emotional intelligence, to look out for the people around you and to find a win situation for them as well. And actually dealing with a student and say, you know what, no, we are not finished here yet, because I believe in you and I want to make this work for you. This is how we build long-term relationships, where you become a human magnet, because people want to be around you. They want to work for you. Again, because they want to, not because they have to. Completely different mindset. Thank you very much for that question. So win-win is key.
And the last question I think we'll do, because we have gone a bit over, but I think we could probably listen to you all night, Martin. It's been fantastic. But the last question is,
appreciate that.
Been great. Being a professional chef, does that mean I don't have the right to express myself to customers? Is that being emotional as well?
The question is, how do you want to express yourself to customers? I think in a very important conversation, as I said, we do need to go for win-win. Yes, we learned that the customer is always right. I personally, that's my personal opinion, know the customer is not always right. And that's beside the point. Coming back to delusion, distortion, and generalization, probably we both are right from a different perspective. Again, utilize emotional intelligence, that you maintain the dignity and the respect of yourself, but also certainly, of course, not get too emotionally with the customer that they lose, but actually build long-term relationship. Let me ask you that question. Probably the best relationships you have with the customers are the one who actually had a bit of a challenge or a complaint at some stage, but you really were able to deal with that very professionally. Customer service. I think humans understand that things can go wrong. That's beside the point. But what they really care is how we deal with the situation again. How do we interpret things? Do we see it as an attack and therefore attack back? Or do we really are professional, meaning we're going for win-win solutions? That was a long-winded one.
Excellent. All right, so I think we'll probably open up, Lynn, to the panelists and we'll sort of wrap it up. I think Alan's going to finish things off.
Well, I'd like to
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been so great, Martin, and on behalf of the World Chefs and also the Young Chef Development Team and all of our committee, as well as everyone on this call, thank you so much for your time, your professionalism, and your insights. I've got 6 pages of notes here to disseminate later today and to digest. It's really powerful stuff, Martin, and empathy, changing mindset, and taking a different perspective in a situation is something I think all of us can learn, whether we are chefs, whether we're managers, whether we are gardeners. It's all about, seeing the other person and understanding their perspective. And so I think the word empathy really resonates with me, taking a step back to try and understand the person's situation. And that works also for the guest situation that we're just talking about, trying to understand, why does this guest not understand? Why does he not see it my way? If you do that, then you're taking the step back, you're putting yourself in their shoes, and very often the answer is right in front of you. At least that's my experience. Thank you for all the incredible quotes. I'm one of those leaders who likes to write quotes on whiteboards for the team to see. So you've given me a really nice handful of quotes for the next few weeks. So thank you very much for that. What an incredible session. I'd like to ask some of the other panelists. Jared, what did you get out of it today?
It actually made me think about being level-headed when you try and see it from both sides. Definitely take a step back, and that's it. What else I got written down? Had some more things. Empowering your own thoughts as well. So basically that I got from it was just to see it in a different way would make you think of how you can change it, basically.
Exactly.
And
I
your
think
mind. Yeah.
Thanks, Jared. I think one of my favorite quotes today was, people don't care what you know until they learn how much you care. And I think that was really powerful. And it came back in one of the last things you were saying also, Martin. So thank you for that. Paul, how was your experience today? What did you think of it all? Are you back on the call, Paul?
Yes, I'm back. It's very interesting, and there is so many aspects of leading and the leading of ourselves. So it's important to widen our view, to see and learn as much as we can. This will we will never be fully taught in this my English.
Paul, I think we all work in progress. I quite often say that. You're spot on.
Exactly right. I certainly see myself learning every day, just as Martin said in the beginning of the session, and how we think shapes our perception. So challenge yourself first. And so I encourage everyone to do just that. Zach from China, how's your perception of this? I'm very interested to hear someone from a very different culture than the rest of us that have been talking today.
I think like should say the brain and the stuff is most important things, and that I learn a lot. And sometimes we always focus, we care about, but always missing some things. So to me, it's very great meeting to me. Thank you.
That is just fantastic. And then Billy, I'll ask you too, Billy, how was your session today? What did you get from it, and how can you share with us a little?
Yeah, sure. Look, I really enjoyed it. I similar to what Zach said about sort of spending time on thinking about what you want to achieve. And I think I took away when we were sort of focusing the questions, and it was initially we were talking about the why questions, I suppose, and then we moved over to the how and the what questions, and it was really about taking action and taking ownership and that in that regard. But I think the biggest thing that I got out of it was probably the 3-step HR sort of thing at the end that you sort of mentioned. I'll definitely be using that in the workplace. I thought it was brilliant, and it really resonated with me. I've been in that situation before myself, where if someone asked those questions, it could have, I suppose it could have changed things a little bit. So yeah, it really, really resonated with me, that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Billy. I've actually been in that situation myself. And sometimes you answer yes to all of those, but you still feel that you need to move on, and that's fine, because you can feel good about it. But at least you ask the right questions, and I think that's really important. Thank you for sharing. So, Lynn, I think we wanted to take perhaps some questions from the people who are listening to us today and put them all on screen and take a photo at the end, don't we?
Yes. So are you ready for photo?
I think so.
All right, we're going to count to 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So thank you so much for, I would like to send our sincerest thanks to the Young Chef Development Committee for putting together this very educational sessions. We have never had such a interactive and inspiring talk like this before, and I believe that obviously shows in the chat as well as all the comments that we've been receiving on our social channels. Biggest thanks goes to, of course, our speaker Martin. We are absolutely pleased to have you as our speaker today, and very much looking forward to work with you and propel leadership in our future events, and both online and offline. I would like to give the closing word back to Alan to wrap up the session.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Certainly, as the chairman of the Young Chef Committee, we certainly believe in the power of young chefs, and this event is very powerful and extremely successful. I'd like to particularly thank Dale Lyman for putting this together and managing it with the office and everyone who's been involved. Thank you to all the panelists, and also to everyone who participated so very well during this session. We'll definitely be doing many more of them, taking it forward from here. Thank you all very much, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. Bye from World Chefs.
Thank you.